everyone, welcome to this special little edition, and what we're talking about today is what to do after you get your invitation to apply. I'm Mark Holthe, Canadian immigration lawyer, and congratulations. I'm going to flip my screen around here. Congratulations to all of you candidates. You know, you've got 5,900 of you STEM people who've been waiting all year to be able to get an invitation to apply, and boom, just like that, you've got it. Once again, another Francophone. It's the golden age of Francophone. And finally, the general draw with a super high CRS score. So congratulations to every single one of you who has an invitation to apply. And for those who are tuning in and watching from all over, congratulations for just being here. Because I'll tell you right now, one of my first tips before I even get into what's going to be my 7-step process is that you prepare early. That you get everything in place, that you educate yourself. Oh, I shouldn't be giving away my tips too soon. So whether you are someone who already has an ITA or whether you're just checking out this whole express entry thing, wondering if it's for you, this is all going to be helpful because the more you know, the better you are going to be set. So let's dive in. And like I said, I've got 7 quick steps I want to rattle off for you because understand if you're not taking it very seriously, now that you've got your ITA, these suckers can slip away faster than you could ever imagine. As an immigration lawyer here in Canada, the bulk of my consultations are people that have had problems, people who have run into small little errors, mistakes that could have totally been avoidable. And then they usually book a consult wondering, hey, how do I fix this? Well, I'm going to try to help you guys to avoid the need to do that and get it right essentially the first time. So let's jump into step 1, which is probably my favorite. Don't assume you have lots of time. So yes, you've got 60 days. Yes, celebrate. Have a party with your friends. Do whatever it is that you feel you need to do. But understand, the moment the party's over, take steps immediately to set up your EAPR. So answer those little eligibility questions once again, and get it set up so that your EAPR is actually ready to go. That is step 1. So don't delay. Don't assume that you've got lots of time because a whole bunch of things can happen. You know, as I think about all the problems that people I've seen have in the past who've waited to the last minute, portals go down, right? Things happen in your family. You know, there's work obligations. There's a whole bunch of things that you have to balance while you're needing to take the necessary time to do it right. And if you do not get a good start on this right away, you can find yourself running out of time scrambling and then submitting an application that is simply, well, garbage, that it's not great. Okay, step 1, let's move to step 2. Make sure nothing has changed. This is really important, especially for all you STEM candidates. As I flip back over here, all of you STEM candidates who have been sitting here for how long? Like, when was it? How far back do we have to go to find another STEM? All the way back to July the 5th, okay? Now, the vast majority of you, if you submitted your profiles, maybe you didn't even realize that you could have claimed points for it. Maybe you didn't even put work experience in for STEM type occupations or work. There's some of you that are like that, who thought your other not-COVIDs may be better, so you didn't put any STEM experience in. And so maybe then you changed it after July. Well, there's a whole host of things that can happen all the way through if your profile has been in the pool for a long period of time. And when it's been in the pool for a long period of time, you have to realize that circumstances change. Maybe you met your true love in Canada or abroad, right? Maybe you got married, maybe got divorced, maybe you got transferred in your job or got promoted, or maybe you got fired, right? And if you have not taken the time to pay attention to what's happening in your profile, it's possible you could have got an invitation to apply. And then what? Well, your profile's locked. You can't go back and change it. And if, in the situation of changes happening, it's absolutely critical that you pay attention to the need for letters of explanation. And in the course, my Express Entry DIY course, I actually teach my students that there are 2 letters of explanation that I have them create. One for the information in the EAPR and the other one for documents. So I recommend that you do likewise. Any changes in family composition, work, whatever it might be, remember, once that ITA hits, if you're not ready for it, your profile is going to be locked. And I suspect many of the STEM folks are faced with that situation. They're like, whoa, wait a minute. My work history's changed or something's changed. What do I do now? Well, letters of explanation help you to correct it absolutely you're going to correct it in the in your EAPR. You're going to make sure whatever is your current situation is clearly listed in the EAPR. And then after that, you're going to use your letter of explanation to explain to the officer why what you put in your profile was not the same as what you now have in your EAPR. Okay, so that's step 2. Moving on to step 3, make sure that your documents are valid. Okay, think about this for a minute. How many documents do you have with expiry dates? Well, I was making a list myself here. And so when it comes to validity of documents, you've got your standard ones, right? Like PCCs, your police clearances. Sometimes, well, they do have expiry dates. ECAs. I would say probably language tests are one of the ones that are the biggest culprits when it comes to people getting their applications rejected because something is expired. Remember, language tests are valid for 2 years, and maybe you did it quite a while back and you didn't even think to renew it. Your profile was in the pool and you've got an ITA and your language tests are expiring in literally days. That's happened, and that can be a problem. So you're going to check, make sure that your documents haven't expired. But yes, ECAs have a 5-year expiry. Yes, police clearance certificates, depending upon where you obtain them, also will expire after a certain period of time. In some cases, if you've obtained them outside of Canada, in other words, you've obtained them while you've been in Canada, but when you weren't living at home, then in those cases, the police clearance certificates don't expire. They're still valid because if you obtained them after you had already left the country, well, you've never been physically present in that country to get a criminal conviction since they were issued. So, but I cover all of that in my express entry course. But there are some sleepers out there, you guys. There are some actual sleeper documents that if you're not paying attention, these also can be, well, the equivalent of expiry or stale dated. Can you think of some? Well, reference letters, right? If you're working for a company right now and you got them to give you a reference letter, say 3 or 4 months ago, maybe you anticipated, you thought you'd be getting your ITA sooner, and then it never happened because they didn't do any stem draws. Well, in those situations, you are going to be faced with a reference letter that might be a number of months old. And remember, if you're continuing to grow with work experience, in other words, the time, if you enter your work experience in your portal, like in your profile, and you indicate that it's your current job, the whole time that you're waiting to get an ITA, it's accumulating that work history. At least the comprehensive ranking system score is continuing to count it. So maybe you were at a year and 9 months when you submit your application, and now it's 2 years, but you got a reference letter before that 2-year mark. Well, if the reference letter is dated before the 2-year mark and you submit your application, no IRCC officer, and I can speak from personal experience having been one, is going to accept your work history just because you stated that it's your current job in your work history section. They're going to look at your reference letter. They're going to see when it's dated. And if it's got an older date on it, they're only going to give you credit for your work history up until the date that letter was signed. So be aware of that. Okay. What are some other sleepers? Well, how about proof of funds? Maybe you like wise people do, and this is what I teach in my course, and this is what we always do with our clients. We try to get all of the supporting documents as much as possible in advance before we even click submit on the profile. Now, often we can tell, or we have a really good idea as to whether or not our clients are going to get an invitation to apply. And in those cases, I don't hold anything back. We just go get everything right away because we know an ITA is going to come probably on the next draw. But if there's uncertainty, like all of you stems that were recently drawn, you may have proof of funds like bank letters showing settlement funds where they could be 2 or 3 months old. And I can tell you, I use as a rule of thumb 1 month. I don't like to have my current employer letter 1 month old. I don't like to have my bank letter a month old. And I know how hard it is to get these sometimes. And if they are older than that, then you need to really, really use those letters of explanation to explain why and to fill in any gaps because, well, I treat those LOEs as kind of the secret sauce in an application. All right. So without beating this one to death, this step, make sure that your documents are valid. Okay. All right. Next here is actual proactive efforts. So step 4 is to collect all your third-party documents first. So if you're surprised and you're like, whoa, I just got an ITA, I'm so excited. Uh-oh, I've got to collect all my documents and I only have 60 days to do it. Well, what do? You start with the documents that are outside of your control. So any document that you have within your application that requires you to submit or get it from someone else, and timing is reliant upon how fast they get their acts together, you have to do it super fast and make sure that you're making those requests and getting that ball rolling as fast as possible, because you just don't know how long it's going to take. So let's see, what do we have here for some of the classic ones? Okay. Absolutely police clearance certificates. Some countries, boom, it's just like that and you've got it. Other countries, it's not that case. And basically it can take, well, up to 2 months or maybe even longer. And when it comes to submitting an express entry application, I can tell you guys, I absolutely never, ever, ever want to submit an express entry application unless I have all the documents. If you look at the instructions, there is a little bit of theoretical grace that says if you don't have something, then explain to the officer why you don't have it and provide evidence. Well, that is an absolute last resort. But if I'm going to do that, I want to show them that I made that request like literally the day after I got the invitation to apply, so that there is no chance whatsoever that an officer can say, oh, I don't think you used your best efforts and it's not my problem that you don't have your documents. That's your job, and then reject your application. So police clearance certificates, absolutely make those requests as quickly as possible. What else do we have on the list? Well, we already talked about it, right? Proof of funds, which is absolutely something that you need to move quickly, because some of the banks take forever to get the letters the way you want them. And what happens if it comes back and they don't have critical components like your average balance over the past 6 months? Many banks just don't even do that. So if that's the case, you're going to have to figure out some other alternatives to shore it up. And maybe that's 6 months bank statements, right? These are all things that we basically work with our clients to obtain, and I teach in my course. All right. What else is on that list? Things that you probably don't even think about. How about reference letters? Hey, yeah. Sometimes employers are not quick at getting back to you, even with your own current employer. I've seen it time and time again. So start that ball rolling right away. And I'm not sure if I put a link. I didn't, but I will. Okay. I wonder if I can find it. I have a link to a special little tool that well, what I did was I took one of the lessons from my course, because lots of people are asking, well, what about this course? And oh, Mark, no one charges as much as you do for your courses. Is it even worth it? So I said, fine, I'm going to pull out the work history section and I'm going to make it available for people. And I meant to put it in the description, but hey, it's a Friday. It's getting closer to the holidays. And as you can see, I've got my funky iPhone camera here I'm using because my other camera has been broken. So everything's been a little bit, turned upside down, but I will make sure that I post in, if you're watching this as a recording, it will be in the description below. If you're watching this live, I'll make sure it's there. But there's a link to a little lesson that I talk all about getting your reference letters and making sure that they're perfect. And employers don't always listen, right? They don't always give you the letter that you need. And that is it's probably the most important document you could have. So you need to start working on that as soon as possible. And it's one of those ones right up front that's relying upon a third party. And who is a third party? It's someone else. It's not you. It's not immigration. It's a third party that really doesn't care what you're doing with your permanent residence, but they hold your future in their hands because they have a document you need. On the list, I have digital photos as well. Sometimes it's not a big deal to go get a digital photo taken, right? But do you guys remember? I don't know, maybe you guys weren't in Canada, or maybe you guys from abroad remember what it was like during the pandemic when this, the waves of lockdowns hit and people just literally couldn't go to a photographer to get the photos taken. You get it. Just get one, and don't rely upon one of your old ones. If it's older than 6 months, or it's one you've used for a different application, I never use those. Okay, what else? How about proof of sibling relationship? Maybe you have a sibling in Canada, or one of your spouse has a sibling in Canada. Well, it takes time to get those documents as well. So keep all of that in mind, and that's just, it all fits into this step 4. All right, let's jump to the next step. The next one is how you approach your actual application. You guys start on the most difficult aspects of the EAPR first. What are they? Well, address history. It's all the things that you weren't, that weren't already completed in your profile. And after you get your invitation to apply, these sections pop up. So address history, let's get all these right. Address history, your personal history, and your travel history. So those 3 components, the key is they must be consistent. both internally and externally. What do I mean by that? Well, internally is if you said you were in Spain last year working and, in Madrid, but yet during that same period of time, you show that your address is Saudi Arabia, well, that's going to be a problem. And so you need to make sure that everything in your application is consistent internally so that your personal history matches with your address history, your work history matches up. If you've traveled, that it fits into the whole, the whole scheme of things. So that's what internal consistency is. But what is external consistency? I can tell you right now that this is something that a lot of people stress over. Why? Because they're booking consults with me all the time about this. External consistency is what you put in your other applications to Canada. What did you put in your study permit application? How about a visitor visa application that you sent, to the Canadian government, whether it was approved or refused? That became a part of your immigration history. And so if you're not paying attention, the reality is you're going to see a situation where you're trying to claim, say, work history for express entry. And lo and behold, you're claiming work history that you never mentioned in your study permit application, right? And that type of a situation is what we call inconsistency, external inconsistency. And if you do not deal with it properly, if you do not address it carefully, when you have that inconsistency, it can cause some big problems. And probably the biggest is misrepresentation. And when you have a finding of misrepresentation, it carries with it a 5-year bar from Canada, and your dreams of coming to Canada are pretty much kapoots, as my father used to say on the farm. So it's really important that if you run into those issues, well, just book a consult. You got the link, you know where to find me. The link, there's our logo, Holthe Immigration Law, right here in the video. Just book a consult and we can help you to try to sort it out. But it's something that must be taken seriously. Once again, you correct it, make sure your EAPR is 100% correct, and then use your letters of explanation to tie everything together, right? The secret sauce. All right. I don't want to beat that one too much, but it's really, really critical. Everything has to be consistent. Okay, let's jump to step number 6. And step number 6 is get someone to review your application. Okay. Yes, within our firm, this is what we do, right? When people bring their applications, we are a firm that is supportive and we work best with DIYers at heart. That's the Holthe Immigration Law, right? We're not the firm that takes your application and doesn't show you what we submit and hoards it and keeps control over it and forces you to pay us those big, hefty lump sums in order for us to release your information to you. No, that's not us. You maintain control of your application. You collaborate with us. We help you, and then we file it together and you maintain control. But whether or not you hire us or not is irrelevant. Whether or not you subscribe to my course is irrelevant. The reality is you must not submit your express entry application without having someone review it with you. Let's face it, we're not perfect. And there's lots of times when we're doing something ourselves. How many times have you written a paper, for school, or we've written an email to someone, and after we send it, we go back and realize, oh my goodness, I totally had that typo in it. I didn't even see it. That happens all the time. And when you're under the gun, you're preparing all of these online forms for the EAPR, your eyes start to glass over. You start to look at errors and just bypass them, like your mind plays tricks on you. And so the way to avoid that is by having someone you trust review it with you. Take a second look, because 2 sets of eyes are always better than 1 set of eyes. And that way will help you to avoid, the situation of probably 50% of my clients who come to me with their applications that are rejected were not big major things. They never are. Well, sometimes there are, but usually it's just small little things. And when you overlook something, it can just cause this tsunami that just builds and builds until your whole application is just swamped. Because an officer, once they see that there's some inconsistency or there's an error and they start to question it, they start to wonder, was that on purpose or was that by mistake? Do I trust this person? Do I look deeper into the other information in their application? I'm not so sure if I believe this. I'm going to reject, right? And so you want to avoid all of that. Have someone else review it, take a look at it, and then you can sleep at night, right? When you submit it, There's nothing worse than submitting it, going back, looking at your application and realizing, oh my goodness, I made that mistake. I can't believe I made that mistake. Now what am I going to do? I'm going to try to submit a web form, right? And that's the path that happens time and time and time again. So whatever you do, take your time, get someone to help you review it. And once again, this comes all the way back to number one, which is, basically don't, what do we have for number one here? Yeah. Don't assume you have lots of time. Okay. Be proactive. Okay. And then the final piece, this is actually one I hit on right at the beginning. And that one is educate yourself before you submit. This is one of the absolute pillars of our law firm. We are not a firm, like I said, where we give you a questionnaire to fill out. We have you fill it out and then we submit your application and you don't even know what the heck's going on. For our firm, we go out of our way to educate our clients, whether they're individuals, whether our corporate clients, large multinational companies, local companies, small companies, individuals, families, students, workers, whatever. When we're going through this process, we educate you so that you understand everything that we do. So that when you're answering those questions, remember, it's yes, the answer you put in there is important, right? Which goes without saying. But why is IRCC asking the question in the first place? That, my friends, is what we teach our clients. That's what I cover in my course. And when you understand why they're asking the question, then you know exactly what to put in there. But far, far too often, whether it's in the work history section, or whether it's study or completing the personal history or even travel history, you're not exactly sure what they mean by certain aspects of it. But by understanding what each question means, and in the course, I walk through video tutorials step-by-step explaining what each question is and why they're asking it, and then basically how you answer it. By understanding and educating yourself, you're going to be in a phenomenal position to succeed. When I was thinking about some of the key most important aspects that you absolutely need to understand when you're going through this process, well, what do they include? And I'll just read them off here. Your eligibility. Like, how do you know whether or not you're even eligible for the program other than you answered the questions and magically it said you can apply, right? These tools that the government provides, you put the information in, it says, hooray, you're eligible, or it says you're not eligible and you have no clue why not. Okay. So understanding eligibility, why it is you can apply, how you're eligible, because then you make sure when you're submitting your documentation that you support that. Okay. How the CRS works. How does the scoring work? What your documents must look like. How to convince an officer that you've chosen the right knock code, which is critical, or even how to draft proper letters of explanation. And it goes on and on and on. And so that's why I created the course. That's why we practice the way we do in our law firm. And I strongly encourage you guys, we're starting the next masterclass starts on Monday at 4. And so there's lots of time for you to connect in. The course, like I said, is a step-by-step walkthrough of every aspect of the entire express entry process, A to Z, all led by me. I did it all myself. And on top of it, on top of the 10 hours of content, that's all broken down in 6 modules and I don't know how many, 50 odd lessons. In addition to that, we have our master classes, which are your opportunity to come and ask me literally anything specifically about your application. And if you guys are watching any of the live Q&As, usually what happens when people ask specific questions is, let's see if I can find it right here. I ring that bell and I say, ooh, that's a specific question, not something that I can answer in here. Keep your questions to general applicability, right? That's kind of what happens in these live streams. But within the course, we have the ability, because of the nature of it, to dive right into any of the little detailed nuances that maybe you didn't quite understand that are affected by your unique circumstances. So that's why the master classes are so powerful. And we take 4 days straight, 1 hour every evening. So it gives you time to go through the lessons, the modules, and then come ask your questions and then go back, fill some more in, come back the next day, 4 days straight. And on top of that, not only do you have access to the course for life, but you also get access to come back to any future master classes you want because you're brought into our community group. And that's how it rolls. So there should be a link below to register for the course. But these are essentially the tips and the steps that I would encourage you to follow. Now I'm just going to pull this off here. And what I want to do now is shift and any questions that you guys have, you can dump them in now. So I've got a little bit of time here before I have to run off to some family obligations here. You can probably sense that I'm a little bit congested. I've been quite sick the last couple of days, but I said to Igor, you know what? There's so much going on these days with Express Entry. There were so many people. Like, how many were there? There was like, I think I wrote it down here. Yeah, 11,650 just in the last 3 days. The 3 days of last week when all the rounds of invitations happened. And that's pretty impressive. And so there's a lot of people that are now in a situation where they're trying to get their applications filed. And there's other people that are just about out of time from the previous rounds of invitations who are trying to get their applications filed. And so it's a busy, busy time. Okay. All right. Yeah. So I made sure that I was here to support you guys. Let's get into some questions and let's see who's here. Promise. Oh, hello, Promise. She says compliments of the season. Thanks, Promise. Appreciate you jumping in. I love it when past clients and subscribers of the course jump in. And then we've got Spidey there. How's it going, Spidey? Hi from Montreal. He says he's trying to find a job at McDonald's or Tim Hortons. I know, isn't it so frustrating? So frustrating. There's so many of you guys that are in that situation. All right. If Tech says, got IT after the nomination, do we need to provide scans of expired passports to match travel history? I have 2 expired passports in the last 10 years. Great question, If Tech. And this is a classic example of searching online and having a whole host of just twisted misinformation, right? Why is on some websites that were probably launched in the early days of Express Entry, 2015, 16, 17, who were never updated, would always encourage you to include copies of all of your passports to support the travel, right? That's what the instructions were. But I'm here to tell you, don't listen to any of them. You're going to be wasting your time. There was a reason they asked for passports before and why it was a problem. And that was because immigration used to require police clearance certificates for every country in which you had spent time, well, 6 months, but it was cumulatively over a period of 10 years. So if you'd gone to a country 1 month this year, 1 month another year, and over the course of 10 years, cumulatively added up to 6 months, they required a police clearance certificate. So those little bugger officers, guess what they would do? They would request your passport, and then they would go through, check your stamps, check your travel history. And if they tallied it up and found that you had 6 months and you didn't provide a police clearance certificate, boo, they would basically reject your application. Yes, they would. And you'd be back at square one, all because you didn't include a police clearance certificate for a country you didn't even realize that you needed one for. Well, that all disappeared. And, you know, the time that I spent on the national executive of the Canadian Bar Association, I had lots of opportunities to talk to immigration. And over that time period, I take great pride in the fact through the pandemic that lots of really positive changes occurred as a result of the advocacy of the Canadian Bar Association and our executive. I took lots of pride in that, but I did so much with Express Entry. This was one of the ones that I could just never figure out. So eventually what happened, long story short, If Tech, is that they removed the need to provide a police clearance certificate, excuse me, unless you had lived for 6 months in a row in that country. So basically what happens, if you look at the document checklist, it says a copy of your current, essentially, passport, and you do not have to provide, my cold is catching up to me. You do not have to provide your other passports because they're not searching through stamps from old passports for travel history like they used to. Now, you still have to be 100% accurate. You still need to fully list your travel history over the past 10 years, but nope, you do not need to provide copies of your expired passports. Only your current one. And that's how it is. All right. And happy holidays to you too, If Tech. Happy holidays. Okay. Kanjan says, I got Portal 1 email and replied to it. Just curious how long it usually takes to receive second email. I see that some people got it in the second day, but some wait months. Exactly. I can't even tell you. It's a complete disaster and gong show. Alicia just had a consult with some poor clients who had done everything right and were sitting for months. And in that time period, while they were waiting, one of the principal applicant's spouse, his father passed away and had to go back to India. And in that time, immigration decided to decouple him from the application because they said, well, he's not in Canada anymore. Well, he was going back to help his family. with bereavement and wrap up affairs with this father that had passed away. So cruel, IRCC. Like, I wish, if you guys are watching this, boy, reach out to me, because that situation is just not acceptable. Anyways, they're still waiting. And so they've been into months. So you're right, Kanjun, there's no rhyme or reason to it. I can't even begin to say. It's so disappointing. And I know Alicia, I'm not afraid to call people out when things are not going well. And Minister Miller right here, your program is really struggling, and on all fronts. So I sure hope you guys can get things sorted out. Okay, let's go to the next question. All right, Shazzy, nice, I like that. Hi, Mark, is proof of a relationship from 2019 birth certificate can still be considered as valid? Birth certificates don't expire. So in the case of, I think you're talking about maybe sibling relationship. So the birth certificates, I'm not aware of birth certificates expiring, but I can't tell you 100% unless I actually have a chance to see the documents. So, but birth certificates traditionally don't expire. So, I think that's all I can add for that one, Shazzy. Hey, Joe, great to connect with you too. Joe says, good to catch your stream at this odd hour. It is. It's a little bit different, right? It's a little bit different. Okay. Versify says, hello, Mark. If I had 2 years, 3 months work experience, 2 years, 3 months before arriving in Canada, but started work. Oh, we got a little bit of a different one here. Okay, I don't know. That one kind of dropped off. Let's try this one, Versify. Okay, worked full-time in my country for 2 years, 3 months. Came to Canada as a student and worked part-time for 18 months. Both same knock. Does the work experience count for 3 years? Got an ITA. Okay, so remember, the work experience, this is the question. Now, I can't tell if you're still working for the company or what, but Versify, this is not something that I can answer in the context of this live stream. I highly recommend that you book a consult so I can look at everything, because the rules with respect to working over like foreign work experience in the context of trying to claim it as, general work experience. I'm assuming what you're talking about is being in Canada and continuing to work virtually. Yeah, I recommend that you book a consult. I had a client who asked a similar question, but it wasn't quite worded exactly as you've indicated. And obviously you've got an ITA, so you put it in there somehow. You identified that work experience in some form or fashion, and that, remember, ITAs are issued just by, an algorithm. It's, a software. It's not a human being, right? And so they just look at exactly what you put in and you're awarded the points, and then it's your job to prove it. So I encourage you to do that. Okay. Joe says, where else can you get free quality information, but only here? Well, I appreciate that, Joe. I know there's some other folks out there that do similar things. And, I think we're all just trying to help people, right? And in the process, help them to realize that we're different than everybody else that's peddling immigration services, and that what you see is what you get, and that there's enough, of a relationship built. People usually subscribe from people that they know, like, and trust. And hopefully that's the case for me, and people will subscribe to my course and join me on the masterclass on Monday, my Express Entry course, or that they will choose to retain us to help them to submit their applications and to, while they maintain control of them. But all of that that's the hope, right, of doing this stuff. Okay. Sarab says, will getting an upfront RCMP criminality report expedite the application for an inland application? No. The only reason RCMP clearances are ever really requested is if they do a name, date of birth search, and they find someone with your exact name and date of birth that has a criminal record in Canada. Then they'll want you to go give fingerprints so that they can rule you out as being the culprit and that it's somebody else, right? And so that's why. So Sarab, I never have clients ever get RCMP police clearances. And in all honesty, I can't remember the last time they ever came back and asked a client to get one. So yeah, it's not going to speed anything up. If you need them, you need it. If you don't, it's still going to be the same processing times. Okay. Excuse me. All right, FTech, I'll answer this one and then we'll shift on. Worked in one company for 5 years and 6 months, worked in the same knock, got promoted twice. However, only meant the last work periods of 3 years. Only post-ITA, can I include the remaining 2 in personal history? Yeah. Yeah, you can. Absolutely. That's what you do. And one of the challenges with the same company is that the instructions that IRCC provides in their program delivery instructions indicate that you're supposed to list all positions in the letter of reference, right? So the reference letter is supposed to list all positions that you've held with the company. And I try to follow their direction as closely as I possibly can. And so if your reference letter doesn't include it, the work history that you're then putting in the personal history, guess what? Letter of explanation. You have to explain why it is that way. Okay, let's see here. Sarab says, many of my biometric fingerprints were poor yellow lights showing on the machine. Will I get a request again, or will my study permit biometrics be considered? I don't know, my friend. I'm not sure about that. I guess we'll have to see, and then you'll have to come back and join me and let me know what happened. Okay, let's see here. Let's keep going. Okay, and I love this. Rob says, your experience as a student doesn't count. Remember, experience as a student while in Canada doesn't count. Okay, this is another one of the critical things that people need to understand. There's so much misinformation out there, right, Sarab? And maybe you've seen the policy, maybe you've read it somewhere else. If you're claiming Canadian work experience in Canada and you're a full-time student, you can't claim that work experience. If you're outside of Canada and you're going to school, you can claim all the work experience in the world you want as long as it fits all the requirements. And so you have to be very, very careful with that. So yes, in Canada, it doesn't count, but outside of Canada, that's the wild card. Well, it's not wild card. If you're outside of Canada, you can study, you can work, do whatever you want, as long as you prove that you've actually been meeting all the requirements to prove that work history. All right, how are we doing for time here? Okay, 7:39. We'll go through a couple more questions. And then, let me pull up my comments again, and then we will, we'll wrap this one up so I can go spend some time with the fam. All right, let's see what we have next. Sid says, is bank statement good enough to show sibling residency? Well, okay, let's take a look. We'll do this together. I'm all about showing people where the source of my information is, unlike others who tend to conceal it and try to pretend like they know everything, and they won't show you where they get it. But I'm all about helping people to understand the source of all goodness. So let's go here, and we're going to type in here, IRCC completeness check EE. That should take me where I need to go. I love this site. This is the one that has all the good stuff in it. And then I'm going to go here, and I'm just going to type in brother. There we go. Took me right where I needed to go. Boom. Proof of relationship, brother or sister. Okay. So if we go down here, you'll see what they indicate. So evidence that the family member resides in Canada must be provided. So what are some of the examples that they have? Residential lease, mortgage documents, utility bills. What are they getting at? These are tied to residency. Okay. Can you use a bank statement? Well, I'll be honest, I've got some reservations with that because anyone can have a bank and not live there, right? So I would be leery to do that. I tend to lead more to a utility bill, like even a phone bill. Most people don't include phone, they don't maintain phone plans if they don't live in Canada. So I tend to lean more to utility bills. That is that's my position on that. All right. Good stuff. Good stuff. And I'm just going to pull that up again. So this is what Sid had asked. Is bank statement good enough to show sibling residency? Okay, let's see what's next here. Okay, Spider-Man. He says, when there's a work permit application pending, can someone withdraw and submit FMWP on the same day? Many thanks. Merry Christmas. Okay. Well, you can always withdraw. You can do whatever you want. The question is whether or not immigration will sort it out on their end. Anytime you're submitting applications and then you're withdrawing them while submitting other ones, there's going to be a period of time where they're a little bit confused and won't understand which one is the one that is the one they're supposed to proceed forward. And I've seen people who submit web forms requesting to withdraw, and the stupid web form is never applied to the original file. And then they have two that are going on at the same time, and they end up approving the first, refusing the second one, and then it's all a mess. So it's definitely not advised to do that. But sometimes all you can do is use the web forms, and then you just have to fight. And sometimes that's where lawyers come in and, trying to support and maintain your status. If officers didn't follow the instructions that you asked them in a web form, and then wrongfully refused the wrong application. So those things happen, Spider-Man. All right, looks like someone threw in a super here. So let's see. VK. Holthe Immigration Law is super awesome. Thank you so much. All right. Oh, I love this here. This over on Facebook too. I've got another super chat from VK. He says, always here, Mark, even though I'm not an EE applicant, I always like to see what I can learn from my super genius lawyer. Greetings, Mark, and Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you too. That's awesome. Okay, we've got, Deshant says, hi, Mark, greetings from Australia. Greetings. Did you know that my brother is there? He lives just south of Brisbane in Greenbank. He has Greenbank Dental, I think is what it is. Is it Greenbank Dental? He's a dentist over there. Anyways, him and his family live in Australia. Okay, my designation is business analyst, but I work as an accountant. An issue? Not so far. Just went into the pool at CRS 350, so not holding my breath for ITA, but curious to know. No, if you've understand when you're proving work history, it's all about understanding what constitutes work history and what the requirements are to prove it. And one of the specific things that they don't concern themselves with is the education required to perform that role. Maybe Canada has a certain set of educational standards, but another country doesn't. So what they do is they look at the duties that you're performing, and they look at the lead statement in the NOC, the National Occupational Classification, the position description in the NOC. It provides, the legislation says that you need to perform the duties in the lead statement, as well as a substantial, or the activities in the lead statement. That's the little intro paragraph on the NOC. And then a substantial number of the main duties, which is about 70-75%, right around there. And if you can establish that you perform those duties and that it was paid, full-time or the equivalent in part-time, 30 hours a week, then you're going to be able to claim it. So yeah, not an issue. I don't anticipate that being an issue for you, my friend. Okay. And we've got VK here. Let's see, VK, what do we have from you? I'm just going to pull up your comment. Let's see. Did I get it here? No, you got a space in there. Okay. Okay. VK says, do I need to apply for Canadian police clearance certificate if I enter into the express entry pool and apply for EAPR ITA while I'm in Canada? Thank you. No, nope. No. And we actually just answered that one too, but no, you don't need to apply for a Canadian police clearance unless immigration, like I said, matches you up with someone else that has the same exact name and date of birth, and they want to rule out that you're not the criminal. All right. Okay, let's go through a few more and then we'll wrap it up here. But this has been really good. Thank you so much for all of your questions, you guys. Assad, good to see you. My name is Assad Ullah. I'm from Pakistan. Welcome, welcome. It's great to have you here. I love people tuning in on Facebook. Okay, let's see what's next here. Gotta make sure I'm not missing anything else. Oh yes, promise. Please, Mark, please tell IRCC Portal to give me my login credentials. It's frustrating. I know. There's so many people that are stuck and I have no control over it. Well, I wish, maybe Minister Miller, this whole portal thing is a complete debacle. It's an embarrassment. And, it's actually tarnishing our immigration system. So please, you guys have attributed millions of dollars to this, unless maybe someone just pocketed the money. I don't know what they did with it. Did you guys actually use the millions of dollars that were allocated in the budget to make the portals better, to modernize the system, or was it just lip service? Because I'll be honest, it's worse than it's ever been, even during the pandemic. Aside from the portal not crashing every other day like the IRCC Secure account used to, but it's really a mess and people like Promise are suffering, my friend. So, Minister Miller, take that under advisement. Okay. Keep zipping through here. All right, let's see what we have next. Manu says, activating the PR, does the residency requirement start from the date the COPR is issued or from the date we first land in Canada with the COPR? If you're outside of Canada and you're coming in with a COPR, your permanent residence is activated when you land at the port of entry. That is when you officially become a permanent resident and you sign your confirmation of permanent residence, and the border officer also signs it, which I was a border officer in a previous life, and they land you in Canada and say, welcome, welcome, welcome home. That's what I would say. Anyways, there you go, Manu. Okay. Thanks, Spidey. He says, take care and hope you feel better soon. Thanks so much. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, here's a great question. This is a good one. This is something that I cover in my course frequently. So, hi, Mark. If I worked in the same company for 2 of my work experience in my application, is one reference letter okay for both positions, as HR is willing to provide only one specialized verification? Yeah. In fact, that's what IRCC says, is they want you to include all of your jobs, like basically all of your positions that you've that you've had in that company, all in the letter. So let's just flip it over here. I'll go back here, and instead of utility bills, let's go here, and I'm going to type in reference. That should take us here. So this is the specific instructions from IRCC. So if we go here, you can see what they ask for. It says you need to provide a reference letter from the employer, and it should indicate all positions held while employed at the company. So there you go. Boom. Right from the source, right from the source. All right, let's see what we got next here. And like I said, I'm gonna try to wrap this up. Let's see. Mixed video mentor. Hey, Mark, hope you remember. I saw your video since 2019. My query is, how much does you charge for holding complete application review and submit? We are a family of 3. We charge $5,000 for that process. And the reason that I charge that is because you work directly with me, and we go through every single piece of that application. I go through, I even help to draft the reference letters. When you put your original draft together, we'll work on fine tuning them. I'll put my immigration officer hat on, and that's for that fee is for the whole family. It always starts with a consult, and then following the consult, I credit that consult fee typically towards the express entry, the fee. But I'd love to work with you. And remember, there's no middle people. There's no assistant, no paralegal. It's just you, your family, and me over Zoom, where we go through every stitch of that application. Or alternatively, you can also join me in my DIY course. And when people come and take the course and then decide to hire me after, well, I give them their course money back, because they're learning, educating, and I know that they're going to be doing an awesome job on their side, putting the application together. And when the time comes, as we work through all of the review process, people who've taken my course are in an awesome position. So there you go, Mix. And I'm so excited for you. So excited for you. All right, let's see what's next. Peter, hello. Peter says, hey, if you're on a bridging open work permit and your PR application ends up being rejected, can you continue to work till the expiry of the work permit? Yes, you can, 100%. Do you know what the current processing time is for a bridging open work permit? It's the same as the processing times for regular work permits. So if you're looking online, and I think you guys, we've been through this enough. Okay, so if we go here and just go to IRCC processing, that should just pull it right up quick. And we go here. I'm going to shift this around. I can see every time I look over there, it's like I'm looking away the wrong way. This is what happens, guys. This is what happens. Let me see here. I'm going to adjust this. I know I'm at the end, and I should have caught that before, but it's so irritating. This is me doing multiple tasking over and over. I just need to mirror myself. There we go. See how I mirrored myself? Now when I look at my screen, I'm actually looking at the screen. So, okay. Excuse me. Oh my goodness. This cold has sapped my brain power, so I'm operating on limited brain power. Let's take a look at work permits here. Okay, work permit right here, work permit inside Canada, both an initial and an extension. You can see the timing. It's pretty ugly, 129 days. And they don't distinguish one from another. And generally speaking, that's pretty accurate for timing, pretty accurate. All right, let's see what we got for time, 7:51. Okay, hi Mark, there's a flood of pre-approved LMIA sold in the market. This is horrible. Is the ESTC knows the situation and yet approved these fake LMIAs? Don't hesitate to reach out to me. The reality is pre-approved LMIAs are possible, okay? You can, many companies, like I've got a construction company where we obtained an LMIA for 60 heavy equipment operators, which in fact, if you are a heavy equipment operator with experience, I've got a fantastic company. If you want to come work in Canada, just reach out to me. But it's in and of itself, Samuel, pre-approved LMIAs, bulk LMIAs are done by lots of employers who then look for people to fill those positions. So it's very common because it can take time to recruit. And so by getting the approval in advance, it cuts down the time that's needed to be able to onboard that person through a work permit. But that's different than people who are scamming or cheating or lying or exploiting or selling those job offers. It is 100% illegal to pay one single dime for an LMIA. And anyone who's trying to charge you for a job, be very careful. I've seen some consultants out there creatively describe their services as for express entry in the course of arranging these job offers. I saw one just recently in Toronto where they were charging $15,000 US. I think that's unconscionable, but hey, if people are willing to pay, I guess it is what it is. So be very, very careful, but thanks for pointing that out. Malav says, hey, Mark, while choosing NOC code, does all the educational requirements need to match? It depends. If the education says, well, when you're doing your NOC, no, the education requirements don't need to match. When you're selecting them, what the factor is, what's the most important thing is that the duties that you perform match. And that's kind of a high level. If you're in Canada and you're working in an occupation in Canada, then there's a tendency for officers to look at the education that you have and whether or not you're qualified to do that job, especially if it's a regulated profession or a trade. But outside of Canada, it never comes up. And even within Canada, it's not like a mandatory component of proving work experience. So you don't need that. But if you are applying for a labor market impact assessment to work in Canada, then absolutely the education requirements are critical and you need to watch carefully. If it says usually required, that's not mandatory. If it says is required, then it's required. Okay. All right. Promise. I recommend, my friend, that you book a consult. We can chat about that. I'm never going to give anyone advice on what to do. I know how long you've been waiting and I know how everybody wants to go home for Christmas, right? And spend time with family. But the reality is it's really volatile. And, you know, I've seen people have their applications completely messed up because they left the country, and Canada can see when they swipe your passport, right? When you're leaving. So information sharing and all that kind of stuff, they can see in entry and exit. And so, promise, I recommend you book a consult and we can chat about it further. But if you were to say, can I? My answer right now is no, I would not. Okay. Let's see what's next. Sarab says, there a separate timeline for processing P and P plus CEC express entry and just plain CEC EE? No, it's not. It's the same. Once you got your nomination and you submit your application through express entry, it's, well, theoretically 6 months or 5 months, whatever the current processing time is. Yes, I know this is the question right here, Versify. And yeah, if you're a student in Canada, but working part-time virtually for a company outside of Canada, does that experience count? Okay, this is something that I don't have an answer for. And I've battled with this issue for, since the beginning of express entry. And so that is, and I know what you're saying. This is for FSW, not CEC. I get it. And I don't actually have an answer for you. There's so much, you know, I've never taken a chance. I've never took a run at this with express entry with a client. And immigration, they have never come back and clarified with me one way or another. I've seen some people say, nope, you can't, you're a student, full stop. You know, but at the same, you know, but at the same time, the work experience, is it Canadian work experience because you're located in Canada? Well, they can't have it both ways. It can't be rejected as Canadian experience because the company's not in Canada, but yet considered Canadian experience just because you're physically present in Canada. That would be a double standard. So I think there's room to take a run at that and challenge it in federal court, but I haven't seen a federal court decision on that. So there you go. That's, I think, what we're getting at, right? Okay. Sid says, can I schedule a consultation to review experience letter and it matches the NOC code? Absolutely. I do that. One thing I don't do is review an entire application in a consultation, but choosing the proper NOC is a critical component, and absolutely I do consultations for that. Sid, I recommend that you join like subscribe to the course. There's the link below. You can get access to everything. There's a NOC selection tool that I use in the course to help people not only select their proper NOC, but then present it to an officer so that they'll accept it too. And yeah, I recommend that you subscribe to the course, Dave. Okay, but absolutely you can book a consult. Let's see if there's anything else here. I think we're just about at the end. Okay, Joe says, check the requirements for the accelerated tech. We'll be graduating this April. Congratulations, that's awesome. I've been working as a web designer at NAICS listed tech company for more than a year now. Will my job offer then be enough? Possibly. It looks like it's got all the makings, Joe. Obviously, you know what I'm going to tell you. Book a consult, and then we can circle the wagons. Remember, the employer has to support you as well with that. Okay. Ackle says, hello, Mark. I'm from Iran. I'll be in the agriculture category based group. That's great. I hope you can get that ITA. Let's see here. Okay, and I'm going to try to keep these to express entry. So if your question isn't about express entry, then I'm going to pass through. I've got just a couple more minutes and then we'll wrap it up here. I think I got your question there, Joe, didn't I? Graduating this April, been working as a web. Yeah. So I think you got a good shot at it. Okay. Hello, Gulam over on Facebook. Great to have you here. And Mix, I think I got your question. Just took time to get to it. Okay, let's see here. Yes, Gulam, I understand this absolutely. I see this all the time. He says how we can contact with and your team, and also I'm too scared from fake or illegal agents all over the world. I understand. Obviously, you can see my website. The links are all in the description below, and you can book a consult through that link. It's all secure. You can see all our credentials. I'm a Canadian immigration lawyer called to the bar, the Law Society of Alberta. Yeah, I've been a lawyer since 2005, I guess, is when I was officially called, and working within immigration since 2002 when I was on the border. So there's me. Yes, Spider-Man, it's freaking insane. Remember, this is US dollars too. So what's that, like 19,000 Canadian? It's pretty inexpensive. Oh my goodness. In the Chinese market, they usually charge 40. It's all illegal. Like, it's just a total scam. Anyone who pays that much money, that's absolutely insane, Spider-Man. It's just horrible, And as long as people will pay that stuff, crooked people will scam. So yeah. All right, Jenny, you need to book a consult. I'll never advise anyone to go to the border, even though I was a border officer, regardless of the situation, because it's not just can I go, but it's where and what do I bring with me, and what are the other issues? Do I have any incidences of maybe working without authorization? Have I been out of status? Is there any other issues? I know, people want a decision sooner. Typically, bridging open work permits are applied when you already have a valid work permit. Now you can if you're out of status, but if your work permit's expired, border officers can be cruel, including saying, well, no, I'm not going to facilitate you. In fact, I think you've worked without authorization and I'm going to send you packing. So Jenny, book a consult. I never will advise someone to go to the border without having a long conversation with them to basically pretend, well, to return back to my border officer roots and grill you and make sure there's no skeletons in the closet. All right. Okay, the SOC spot says, Nightmark, how do you generally handle clients with limited proof of compensation for ONP or E and foreign cash jobs? It's tough. I include every single thing that I can. Did you file taxes, right? We talk about that. Is there any other proof that the payment was made? Now, remember, when it comes to express entry, when you look at the instructions, it says provide a reference letter and pay slips if available. So absolutely pay slips, the reference letter. Those are important parts. It's not that cash jobs are just barred and you can't claim the work experience, but you need to have evidence to support that the payment was made. And that's where you run into problems. I've got a fairly detailed what to do if you can't get a perfect reference letter, and other tips and strategies for proving work experience in my course as well. Okay. See what else is next. Dushan asks another great question. Do we need to provide reference letters for jobs that we're not claiming points for? No, not at all. But they're absolutely going to be listed in your personal history if those jobs were within the last 10 years. Okay. Prakvees says, after PCC is issued, Do I need to get a new police clearance for my country of residence if I travel outside for a week? Okay, this one I don't know exactly what you're asking, to be honest. This is where it could be interpreted many ways. The reality is if you're in the country in which, like your current country, and you obtain a police clearance certificate for it, that police clearance certificate is valid for 6 months. You can go anywhere you want to, but it's going to expire after 6 months because you were physically present in that country when it was issued. Excuse me, if you're in Canada and say you get a police clearance certificate for Iran and you never return back to Iran since the police clearance was issued, in other words, you were still outside of the country and never returned and never had set your foot in the country from the date it was issued or after, then that police clearance certificate generally won't expire. But yeah, I'm not sure if that answers the question. Okay, Varun on LinkedIn, great to have you connecting in. This is absolutely one of these, and I will ring this bell. That's the triangle that says book a consult. This is complex. There is the ability, if you can provide evidence to support, if you have the drop in your CRS score like this, you submitted your application. What if my score reduced to 498? I don't know exactly why your score would be reduced to 498. And the score is still above the cutoff because my Canadian work experience reduced from 2 years to 1 year. Oh, there you go. Still above the cutoff because my Canadian experience reduced from 2 years to 1 year. Okay, yeah. So in that situation, if you're above, in some cases, if you do it right and you provide the proper letters of explanation, you lay it all out for the officer, you might be able to save it, because our the 11.2 assessment, the completeness check assessment, our 10 is the completeness check. 11.2 assessment for changes within your EAPR and your profile. That policy directs the officers that they have the ability to refuse if there's been a change that would cause you to no longer be eligible for the program in which you were drawn, or that would cause your CRS score to drop below the round of invitations, which doesn't seem to be the case for you here. So it might be savable, but I recommend that you book a consult, Varun, and we can look at it together. I definitely don't want to give you advice until that happens. Okay. Skirmish says, after landing as a PR, can you change your intended knock in your express entry profile? Why would you want to? As in work in a different knock other than what you had an ITA for? Yeah, you can do whatever you want. Not a problem. Yeah. You're very welcome, Jenny. Very welcome. And we'll get to 2 last ones and then we'll wrap it up. Okay, let's see. Dushan says, thanks, Mark. Appreciate your help. Iftek says, thank you. And Aaron, I'm not sure if I can answer this one. He says, can I apply for a bridging open work permit if I applied for permanent residence using a community recommendation through the rule? Yeah, yes, you can. But the thing is, most RNIPs have kind of like, they have the ability to support a work permit. Well, yes, they do. The short answer is it is possible. But Aaron, once again, I recommend you book a consult and we can sort it out together. Okay, Shirag, I guess got one last one in. Oh, I'm going to end with Shirag here, guys. Do we need to mention part-time jobs while studying in the personal history section? Yes, you do. 100% you do. All right. Okay, guys, I'm going to just flip over here and I'll just show you quick what I'm talking about as far as the course goes. But the Canadian Immigration Institute is the source of all my DIY courses. And the course that I'm referring to, the express entry one, if you have not yet seen it, this course right down here has, if you click on the link below, it'll take you right here and you can check it out. Not only do I have a whole bunch of information here, but there's a complete breakdown of the whole structure of the course at the bottom here. And yeah, there's been just wonderful experience for me teaching the course. And December the 18th to the 21st is when we do the masterclass. I'd love for you to attend. Like I said, once you enroll, and I'll just give you a quick little look at actually what it is. Let me jump in here and I'll find my express entry course and you can just see what it looks like. So this is it. And I pulled out one section of the mastering your document section. You can see each of these modules covers the basics, profile completion here, completing your EAPRF to get the ITA, the document checklist, mastering your documents. I love the mastering your documents section. We put so much effort into this sucker, and you can see here records of employment, for example, just as there's always a video lesson explaining. This one's 23 minutes long alone. And then you can see I have all of these downloads: FSW hours of work tool, CEC, record of employment checklist. That's kind of for employers. What if I can't get a reference letter? And then we've got sample reference letters, our knock selection tool. And this knock selection tool is designed to help you make sure that your knock is the correct one. And then, do I have sample reference letters? Yeah, I've got a few. Try about 30. Okay, all past people who've had theirs approved. These are real letters. So that's just one example of what's in the course. And of course, with each of these, like I've talked about before repeatedly, right here, we will be doing the masterclass at 4 p.m. on Monday. And we're going to continue it forward Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 4 to 5 p.m. Mountain Time, 1 hour where you can ask anything you want, and your ability, you have the ability to jump into the actual community group and be there with all the other people that have subscribed to the course. You have an opportunity to ask questions, get them answered. If you can't make the live classes, no problem. You can leave your questions and no question goes unanswered. So come check it out. And yeah, it's awesome. I'm really excited to do another one coming here just in, I guess we got a few days away here, All right. Thanks so much, everybody. I really appreciate you joining me. Shazzy, thanks so much. And the SOC Spot, good to see you. And anyone who has questions, I also, just so you can figure out and know which one I'm referring to, you should be able to see the law firm. But anyways, let me just pull it up and I'll show you. This here is our firm website. So you can check it out here, and it's connecting with us and booking a consult. It's as simple as clicking on Speak to a Lawyer. Okay. All right, let's wrap it up. We'll turn on a little bit of tunes here to say goodbye. I like this one. All right, guys, take care. Thanks for joining today. Thank you.